Okay, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be running you through and explaining some regular verbs in Italian in order so that you can start using them in your writing and be able to express some more complex ideas as we progress through Year 9. So, to start off with, verbs, a quick definition, verbs, often we refer to them as doing or action words. Sometimes in English you'll also hear them referred to as process words because they tell us about processes. Now, in Italian, regular verbs, which are the ones we'll be looking at, end in are, ere, or ire. You would have looked at that a little bit in Year 8. Okay, but they have 3 different endings for regular verbs. Now, when we use these verbs, we can use them in the present tense, the past tense, the future, or the conditional forms, as well as others that we don't go into in Year 9 that you won't need for this year. Now, today we're going to be running through the present tense. Okay, this is the one we'll really focus on this year. So one thing you do need to know about verbs, and this applies in both English and Italian, is that verbs have infinitives and they have conjugations. Now we'll run through those 2 words. They're complex words, they're technical words for something that's actually not that difficult. Okay, so infinitives, that's the first bit you need to know, are essentially the names of the verb. So some different examples with the different endings: mangiare, to eat, vedere, to see, and dormire, to sleep. Now basically what you could say is that this are, ere, ire, those endings denote what we would say in English as to something or other. So to eat, to see, to sleep. Okay, so whenever you see a verb in its are, ere, or ire form, it's in the infinitive and it means to and then the action. So to eat, to see, to sleep, to think, to run, so on. Now the meaning of the verb can only be looked up in the dictionary in its infinitive form. So for example, you will only find parlare, which means to talk or to speak, in that form parlare. You will not find the different forms of I speak, you speak, he or she speaks. Same thing for any other verb. You will only find the infinitive, the to something or other. On the other hand, a conjugation, or when you're asked to conjugate a verb, it's when the infinitive form is broken down into its different parts. So we start to give the action an agent. So someone is now doing the action. Now, I think this will be best explained through seeing it in action for you. So we'll start off with the verb parlare, to speak. Okay, we've got it in its infinitive form with the are on the end. Now, the very first thing we have to do in order to conjugate it, in order to break it down into its different parts and give that action to a person or give that action to a thing, is drop off the are. Okay, so drop off the are and we were just left with parle. Now, that parle is what we call the stem of the verb. Okay, so it's the bit that never changes, it always stays the same. Then we go on to add some different endings. Okay, and with every single are verb that is regular, okay, we always add the same endings depending on who's doing the action. So, in order to say I speak, we add an o, io parlo. Okay, in order to say you speak, so one you that we're talking about, tu parli, we add an I. He or she speaks, lui o lei parla. We speak, noi parliamo. All of you speak, voi parlate. And they speak, loro parlano. Okay, so all regular are verbs take those endings that we've got in bold on the screen. Same thing happens with ere verbs, with regular ere verbs. Every single regular ere verb takes the same endings in the present tense. So the example we're using is vedere. Okay, so the first thing we would need to do to change vedere from to see and then assign the action to a person is to, same thing as we did with parlare, get rid of the are so that we're just left with the ved part, with the stem. Okay. Then we add the endings that we've got in bold on the screen. Io vedo, I see. Tu vedi, you see. Lui o lei vede, he or she sees. Noi vediamo, we see. Voi vedete, all of you see. And loro vedono, they see. Okay, so you'll notice that the endings that we've added here are slightly different at times from the ones that we've added for the are verbs. However, for every single regular ere verb, they all take these endings in the present tense. Okay, then we've got dormire, which is an ire verb. Okay, again, we do the same thing as with are and ere verbs when we're asked to conjugate it or to assign a person to its action. We get rid of the ire and we add particular endings. Okay, now there are two different groups of ire verbs which I'll talk to you about in a moment. Okay, but this particular example, dormire, is what I will always refer to as a group 1 ire verb. And you'll see what I mean by that in a moment. Okay, so we drop off the ire and we add particular endings. Io dormo, I sleep. Tu dormi, you sleep. Lui o lei dorme, he or she sleeps. Noi dormiamo, we sleep. Voi dormite, all of you sleep. And loro dormono, they sleep. Okay, so you notice the same pattern, slightly different endings from are and ere, but still all regular group 1 ire verbs will take those endings. Okay. Now, one thing you do need to just to take note of is that sometimes verbs are what we call irregular. Okay, they don't follow that pattern. Now, some examples of those that we've already come across are essere and avere. Okay, so to be and to have. There's many others. I will always tell you if a verb is irregular. Okay, and we'll go through some of those this year. Now, one thing you'll have either on your computer or in hard form in front of you is a verb endings table that looks like this. This is basically a summary of what I've just been through. So this is going to be a tool for you whenever we're working on present tense verbs this year. Don't lose this, you will need it. Okay, so this summarizes the different endings for each personal pronoun. So for I, you, he or she, we, all of you, they. And for each verb ending, are, ere, ire group 1, ire group 2. Okay, so these endings in the are column are all the same ones that we added to the verb parlare in that last document. These verbs in the ere column, all the ones that we added to the verb vedere in the last document. Ire group 1, the endings that we added to dormire. Okay, now this last column, ire group 2, okay, sometimes there's a group of regular ire verbs, and we'll go through a few of them in class, that take slightly different endings to ire group 1. They're still regular, okay, but they take different endings. So you'll notice that we've got isco, ishi, isce, iamo, ite, iscono. So an example of a group 2 ire verb is finire, which means to finish. So we would do the same thing as we do with any other regular verb. We drop off the ire, we're left with the stem, fin, and then we would add the particular endings depending on the personal pronoun, so depending on who is doing the action. So you've got io finisco for I finish, tu finisci, you finish, lui o lei finisce, he or she finishes, noi finiamo, we finish, voi finite, all of you finish, and loro finiscono. So it's still regular, but this group of ire verbs takes different endings to group 1 ire. When it comes to a test or an assignment, or when we're doing activities in class, I will always tell you if a verb is group 2 ire. Okay, if it's a group 1 ire, I won't comment on it, but if it's group 2, I will always tell you. Okay, now it's probably time for us to do a little bit of practice on this. Good luck.